Good morning, Gamecock fans. JC Shurburtt here with coffee. Today is Friday, March 21st, the year of our Lord 2025, and certainly am happy that you have elected to listen to what I have to say here at the end of the week. Going to be a little shorter episode today. Got some stuff to prep for with a commitment later this morning, and the show's only going to be an hour today, by the way. I have to get to my March Madness party, and Phil is at the Great Wolf Lodge with his family. So we just kind of decided, hey, you guys are going to be watching basketball anyway, right? So why would you listen? So anyway, the Super Stream, that's the morning show, and the show will be 3 hours, and then our portion will just be one with some crosstalk in there. So be sure you check that out on YouTube or the Chief Sports app. But certainly going to be a busy day in the old Shurburtt household because in the Club Chief ITG Bracket Challenge, that's different from the Gamecocks Bracket Challenge that we did through Ernie.com. And I want to thank everybody for signing up for that. Hopefully the Gamecock fan base wins, and hopefully you win $5,000 with that. But we had a little Club Chief for Club Chief members. By the way, if you're not a Club Chief member, it's $4.99 a month. You get exclusive access to the chat box, some other stuff, some gear, things like that. And you can go subscribe on our YouTube channel, Chief Sports South Carolina, to get in on the action there. Not a bad price for the fun that we have in the Nana Sports chat box each and every day. But anyway, so we kind of did, Kreger, one of our listeners, set it up for us. And this morning I look at the standings and I'm kind of tied for last, and my wife, Nat, is tied for first. And so, wow, that's going to be a busy day after I get all the work done watching basketball with her, because she'll rub it in pretty good. I'm much better at picking game by games and against the spread. I'm really good against the spread in the tournament. Had a pretty good day yesterday with it as well. But that's not why you tuned in today. You tuned in to talk Gamecocks. And of course, women's basketball team starts NCAA tournament play today against Tennessee Tech. The 16 seed at Colonial Life Arena. Tip-off is 4 p.m. That game is on ESPN, the regular ESPN. The softball team with a tough out-of-conference matchup. Unlike baseball, they have non-conference series that kind of break things up, or at least the Gamecocks do. 11th-ranked South Carolina plays host to 12th-ranked Texas Tech in the Big 12. Boy, Texas Tech athletics having a pretty good year. Football team was good. People expect them, after the portal class they signed, to be even better next year. The men's basketball team under Grant McCasland won last night, defeating UNC Wilmington in a tough game, but I think they're a 3 seed. And then, the softball team obviously is 12th. I have not checked on their baseball team, but they've got a booster out there that's like a tech bro. I believe he's a tech bro, an oil guy that sold his company for billions, that's funding their NIL. So I like Texas Tech. I've always kind of thought those guys out in Lubbock, where they're located, they probably play a little behind some of the other Texas schools, but obviously was a fan of Mike Leach and was a fan of Bobby Knight, and they both coached there. Their colors are red and black. I like that. Certainly Patrick Mahomes, Michael Crabtree. Their basketball team played for the national title, and Chris Beard was there. Back in the day, South Carolina hired Jim Carlin as a football coach away from Texas Tech. So, and then I'll throw this out too. I was looking at the history of South Carolina in the NCAA tournament. It's not a good history. If you don't want to be depressed, don't look it up. But back in the McGuire era, Carolina did play in a regional in Houston, Texas, and beat the Red Raiders 78-70. So one of the handfuls of teams that have fallen to the Gamecocks in the NCAA tournament through the years, Texas Tech. But they play softball 6 p.m. That game is on SEC Network Plus. I don't guess Brad Muller probably won't be calling it because he's with women's basketball. So I don't know who will be broadcasting there, but that's a home series. And then tonight, 7:30 p.m. first pitch, South Carolina baseball plays at number 3 Arkansas. Brandon Stone getting the start for the Gamecocks. With the baseball team, I just think it's probably important. I say probably important because this baseball's crazy, right? And especially the last 2 games for the Gamecocks, right? So You look at sort of the Clemson series Friday, they got behind. You look at the Oklahoma series, they got behind early. And Matthew Becker, of course, started against Clemson, and then Stone started against the Oklahoma Sooners. It was 4-0 both times. You can't get in a hole like that at Arkansas and expect to hang in and win. So hopefully, here's hoping for a better start from the pitching. Arkansas could really hit the ball. Their pitching isn't probably numbers wise. I'm sure they're good. I mean, the pitching number wise isn't as great. A lot of high ERAs out there, but they did win a series at Ole Miss last weekend, and they are third in the country. And even if they weren't ranked, it is a tough place to play. Baum Stadium is one of the cathedrals in SEC baseball. So yeah, March Madness rolls on today. Clemson's out. I know that deserves a mention, right? And what got me was, there were some talking heads, especially one at CBS, that just torched Will Wade, destroyed him because the news leaked of him taking the NC State job. I think it's because it's Will Wade, and a lot of people don't like Will Wade. Probably wasn't my favorite person when he's at LSU either, but that was before this period in college athletics where you kind of go, I mean, it's like the Wizard of Oz. You find the man behind the curtain, and you find out, well, that wasn't a big deal, right? The strong ass deal, he made a strong ass deal with NC State and going to go coach the Wolfpack. But they beat Clemson, which is his alma mater, which is another reason I think a lot of Gamecocks are not Will Wade fans. But they were up 51-29. Clemson made a furious rally, lost. So after all that, do we really think? And sometimes it does, right? Sometimes it's unfortunate, but do we really think that affected McNeese State? No, in fact, I think it played better, and it usually goes one of two ways. But everybody, if it were a player that opted out, very few people would be. I mean, players normally aren't going to opt out of the NCAA tournament, but it's coming. There'll probably be one over an NIL deal or something that does it. Everybody would be applauding. Oh, gosh, this guy, blah, 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 blah. And their whole thing is, well, coaches can move around anytime they want. And that's true. Coaches are adults and professionals, right? And look, I'm not anti-player movement, anything like that. It's worked out well for the Gamecocks, especially in football, but in men's basketball last year as well, and hopefully this coming year, right? So I look at that and I'm like, oh, this is kind of silly that you're sitting there tattooing this guy. Just a blah, 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 and a lot of people were kind of snarky about it, which I can't stand. I mean, it's a little bit off-putting when I'm sitting here defending Will Wade, right? But his team wasn't affected. The student manager, who's a baller that's got 3 NIL deals, was not affected, and they're off to the next round against Purdue Pete. I did put on the Chief Sports Instagram. Go follow that at Chief Sports Net. Up a little post about upsets and being upset, and there was a ranking of the mascots in last year's tournament. Cocky was pretty high, like in the top 20, but the second to last one was the Tiger from Clemson. And of course, my boy Purdue Pete was the last one. It was just a terrifying mascot. This year, St. Francis of PA would have been up there, but Purdue moves on. Clemson does not. So we won't have Purdue Pete versus the Tiger in the second round. But interesting that Missouri lost to Drake. I kind of saw that coming. And folks, if you want some there's some folks out there. We're all getting used to the portal, right? We're all getting used to like who's good, who's not. You can't really. I've talked about the rankings before and how football they're kind of, they're evolving. Basketball is probably a little bit easier because we've had transfers in that sport for a long time, but there are also hundreds of basketball players at various levels. There's 300 and whatever 50 Division I programs. Low major, high major, mid major. There's D2. Drake, their coach came from D2. I think they have 4 guys from that roster he brought with him. And they're in the tournament, not only in the tournament, but they just beat an SEC team and a pretty good one in Missouri. which has a long losing streak in the NCAA tournament now. It's been a while for the Tigers. I still remember they cost me in Vegas that year. They were a 2 seed and lost to Jackson State or Norfolk State. I keep seeing Jackson State, Norfolk State. Yeah, I had a parlay of all 16 games. I got 14 of them. I've said this, told the story before, and the 2 losses were that one, and then Duke lost in Greensboro to I think Marist. Duke in Greensboro lost, and I got all the other ones. $5 bet, 30 grand. No Rain Man suite for me and my buddies because if I'd have won that, we were going, right? So I'll never forgive the Missouri Tiger basketball program. But yeah, it's crazy. And you can apply the Drake thing to South Carolina. Drake's not a up and down the court team. They slow it down, they work it around, they play fun, kind of like Lamont Paris's teams do. And sometimes you can't you're not going to be out athleted if you're Missouri, but you can be out basketballed. And with that, I set the table for the upcoming portal period because they got to go find guys that can basketball. I don't think it's realistic to beat your head against the wall in this league trying to out athlete. You need to zig when other people are zagging. I think if you're South Carolina, especially after looking at that NCAA tournament history, 116 years of men's basketball at South Carolina, 10 NCAA tournament appearances, very few wins. One magical moment in March in 2017, which I went back and watched some of the intro from that. That was special. That was special. And it sucks because you get kind of sad because you don't know if it's going to ever happen again. Fleeting moment in time, right, folks? Anyway, you can help the basketball effort, obviously, by buying some coffee, GamecockCoffee.com, or some delicious gourmet popcorn. It's the Rise and Shine New Orleans Roast. Also want to mention, the weather's getting good. The golf courses are open, folks. You need golf accessories. You need to look great. And go check out my friend, Brandon, who is a big Gamecock, has all kinds of designer belts, designer golf towels, for the right price. PalmettoGolfing.com is the address. It's Palmetto Golf and Belts is the name of the business. So be sure to support our sponsors there and check all of that out. All right, football topic today. So ESPN releases, and it's kind of cool because South Carolina's in their way too early top 25 at number 10. So I often complain, or not complain, but often observe, right, that some of the national media has no idea who plays for South Carolina. I don't know that they did during the Spurrier era. I think they could tell you that Steve Spurrier coached there and Jadeveon Clowney and Marcus Lattimore played there. I don't think, very little mention of Connor Shaw and his greatness and, guys that like Brandon Wilds. I mean, they just didn't get a lot of, and that's fine because, you get college football. If you're not a blue blood, you don't really, you have to really work for the attention. It's far worse in basketball, far worse. But in football, you really got to work, and big moments really help you, right? And Shane Beamer certainly had those. But I think having Carolina in the top 10, the way too early in the top 10 of the way too early top 25, I think that's good because it forces people to do homework. Now, so they listed breakout players. It's list season. And so yesterday, the breakout player was Nick Harbor. Now, look, I'm going to say this. If Nick Harbor is the breakout player on this football team, and I think that the facts behind the opinion would be, he's working full time on football, and that's fine. I mean, that's great. I think every rep you can get when you're still learning a position and trying to match your athleticism and speed and all those gifts he was given by the good Lord to play on the field and pads, you want as many reps as you can get. And we've seen guys get a lot better around here, especially at that position in the course of 1 year. Xavier Legette obviously recently comes to mind, but Josh Vann was a player that led the SEC in drops 1 year, had some injuries, came back in 2021 and led the team in receptions. 2022, he was a very instrumental part of that, what ended up being a really good receiving core with Juice and, uh, Josh Van was on that, in that receiving core. Was really good. Jalen Brooks was another player. He's in the NFL. I mean, that we probably don't talk about that enough. And it just makes me madder and madder about the what happened with the OC. I mean, you think about that Florida game in 2022, just ran it up the middle into a brick wall, and you've got all these guys at receiver, and you're running three tight ends out there. If I get sidetracked on that, I'm not going to end up doing what I came here to do today. So I'm going to shut up. But good God. And look, I've been proven right on this. Look at what happened at Nebraska. And you watch Nebraska this year with Dana Holgerson and that quarterback, watch them score points, and it looks like a college football team. Nevertheless, anywho, uh, yeah, so that was a good receiving core. Josh Fan got a lot better. Jalen Brooks got a lot better, year to year. And then Xavier Legette. And Xavier was just hard work. I mean, he put in the time. And so we've seen that happen at this position. And you got a guy as gifted athletically as Nick Harbor. I think that's plausible. That would not be who I picked. That's low hanging fruit, in my opinion. I hope he is one. I hope he's one of many. You're going to have many on the football field this year. But I just couldn't pick him. I was like, well, I think there's other guys that are safer, so I'm going to give you my picks, and I'm going to do one on each side of the ball. I guess that's cheating, yeah, instead of doing one player. But I'm going to do one on either side of the ball. So you got to break out for defense, break out for offense, and that's this coming season, 2025. And this isn't the easiest exercise in the world because, like I said earlier, if South Carolina is going to remain considered a top 10 team once it gets real, you're going to have to, and I guess it also depends on how you define a breakout player. Like Rasul Faison could be a guy that's really productive. Hopefully he gets back and things like that. But he rushed for 1,000 yards at Utah State last year. He's a kind of a known entity. Of course, Nick Harbor's known, but the production hasn't been there. So, I think it's fair to consider him a breakout player if he has a big year. So do you do it by statistics or opportunity playing? I don't know. But I kind of went with my gut. I didn't clearly define what a breakout player is. I'm just going to give you mine. But it's hard because if South Carolina is going to be good on the football field this year, you have to have a lot of breakout players because there's a lot of players that have not played. I think they're talented. We all think they're talented, but they have not played. And even more that have not played at South Carolina. So there's a great, I don't want to call it a mystery, but there is a great need for multiple breakout players on both sides of the ball. But I wasn't going to cheat. Now, by the way, those of you that listen to Coffee, I know you get in the comment section here on our YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, share. That's what they always say. But leave your breakout players in the comments. Maybe I will read them on the show. Maybe. Keep it clean, folks, in the comment section here on YouTube, Chief Sports South Carolina. So I'll start with offense. And this was one where Jamie Bradford had this I'll die on this hill moment in an interview with Matt Anderson last week. And they were or earlier this week on Tuesday, they were previewing spring practice where he started talking about the lines of scrimmage. And it's like everybody says it's a lines of scrimmage league. And you got to have a line of scrimmage or you're dead. And he's right. And everybody also doesn't want to talk about that. They want to talk about the people with the ball. Now, defense, probably you talk a lot about the line, but it's more at end and, defensive backs that can make interceptions, things like that. But offensively, it's like I think in Gamecock land, people just don't want to hear about the offensive line, because it's not always, but most of the time, or let me rephrase. Many times in the past decade, it has been disappointing after optimism in the offseason. I've said this before. I'm not going to sit here and blow sunshine up your butt, Lieutenant, to quote Top Gun, about them. I'm just going to hope for the best. I think there's some really talented guys. I think that, knowing what we know about Shula and kind of him maybe simplifying some things that they have to do, which I don't know why that wasn't something they did before. Um, there's hope, but hope is not hope is we all hope about everything. I hope Carolina finds a kicker. I hope Carolina gets a D tackle in the next portal period, although it's not going to crush the season if they don't. I mean, it can only help with regards to that. But, I hope, some of this talent really comes along, the young talent in Carolina can build on what they started last season. And Shane Beamer even said it in the press conference that there were things from last year, as good as it was, that they need to clean up. And that was the difference between, winning 9 and then or winning 10 and going to the playoff, which apparently is some magical threshold, even if you play Mississippi State, right? Instead of LSU. Oh, that's much better. They play. That's better than money, sir. Those are IOUs, to quote Dumb and Dumber. How do I confuse Dumb and Dumber with Top Gun? Anyway, yeah, that's the same logic. Oh, Mississippi State gives them 10 wins. My God, go Vols. And that Vols thing was after the fact. I didn't even think about that. I was a sheep. I would have probably complained loudly about that. Of course, you don't want to piss off Vol Twitter. They get people fired, and yeah, I mean it's a nasty group, folks, on Twitter, Tennessee fans. But you look at it. Why was that never a discussion? Tennessee versus Bama, Carolina, Ole Miss, and if you say, well, Tennessee beat Bama, fine, put Bama out. What about Ole Miss and Carolina and the teams they played versus the teams Tennessee played? I don't know. Anyway, that's a side note there. But as good as it was, there were some things Carolina did that cost them. There's some things they did in games that they won that could have cost them wins. It could have been a 7-win team, right? And everybody's kind of satisfied relative to expectations, but not like they are now. So everybody's got room for improvement, folks. Clemson is being hyped, ranked pretty high. Clemson's back, that kind of thing. That football team has a long way to go, especially on defense. I mean, a coordinator sometimes isn't the magic sprinkle that you can, that to make it better. I think they will be pretty good on defense next year, and then they're counting on a freshman running back. If you're one dimensional, we talked about that yesterday. Yeah, it's tough. It gets tough, very tough. But so there's things they need to improve on, and the offensive line is definitely one of them. But for my breakout player, I am going with an offensive lineman, and I'm going to go with Tree Babalade or Babalade. I think Alex Jones pronounced it Babalade. But anyway, I'm going with Big Tree. Now, you may say, JC, Big Tree was the National True Freshman of the Week in 2003, started 9 games at left tackle. He started a game at left tackle last year. Yeah, but he redshirted. And from what we've seen during the open periods of practice so far, he's at a new position at left guard. And I'm going to tell you why I picked him. Number one, I think it's up for debate whether he's the best lineman on the team or not, based on feedback and then just straight up performance in games. It was a luxury that they got to redshirt him last year, stole an extra year, because with offensive linemen, you just never know. I mean, you have a lot of injuries at that position. You have a lot of things that, where that extra year comes in helpful down the road. And I think he's developed. I think he's gotten a lot better since his true freshman year. I think playing his true freshman year helped. And I'm very intrigued by this guy. What is he? 6'6", 335 at left guard. Left guard. Last year, I think you had a 295-pounder at left guard in Kamar Bell, maybe 305. That's a lot of extra beef. That's a lot more talent. That's a lot more athleticism. And you line him up beside Josiah Thompson, who should take a big step. And that could be a big key. Carolina starts blowing people off the ball on the left side. You have enough at running back talent-wise if you open holes. Because that's a big key. I mean, Most backs are good if they have blocking. Uh, some backs aren't. They don't follow their blocks, and that's called vision. But I don't think any of the four possibilities at Carolina, Attaway, Faison, Fuller, and then Howell. I don't think any of those guys have that problem. So you start being able to really do, and that's also Lenore Sellers' blind side in the passing game. So pass pro should be good on that side. So many times last year, teams would send players right up the gut, and or they'd get loose, and oh Lord, it was a mess sometimes. Sometimes when you watch the offensive line last year, you're like, how did this team go 9-4 or be 9-3 at the end of the year and be in the playoff hunt? And then you watch what Lenore Sellers did, and you're like, oh, that's why. And Rocket Sanders and Josh Simon. Two of those three are not back. So I'm going with Big Tree. How about that for my breakout player? If I were writing for ESPN, I had to pick an offense. It's rare you'd pick an offensive guard / tackle, but I'm going with Big Tree. I think that's going to make a big difference this year on that side. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going with my man Fred Johnson. I just really love Fred Johnson, and the feedback on him has never heard one negative thing. You hear overwhelmingly positive things. He's huge. Uh, I thought Debo Williams played his heart out in all SEC in 2023. Was really solid in 2024 as well. He had a great pro day. I think he epitomizes a Gamecock. Came here from the portal, sight unseen from the University of Delaware, largely, and never backed down. Was fearless. This is not a shot at him, but I feel I don't want to say feel confident, because then if it doesn't happen, people will blow up my mailbox if you can find it. Just kidding. I feel really good about Fred, and I feel like South Carolina's linebacking core could actually upgrade, as crazy as it sounds, because you're replacing a lot of players. The only thing I worry about with regards to him and Justin, Uncle Runquo, and Sean Murphy, number one, they're new, so they're kind of Uncle Runquo and Murphy are portal guys. They're learning a new system. So much of linebacker is both instinct and also reading your keys. So you have to get comfortable with all that. But and sometimes young linebackers take false steps and get out of their gap, and you kind of live with that with your inexperience. But man, Carolina, I don't think since Jasper Brinkley they've had a guy linebacker that's this big and this fast. I mean, he runs 4.5 and this athletic, 40-inch vertical. Believe it or not, he ended up, and I think Nick Emanware, had we been in a normal recruiting cycle when he was a recruit, I believe he would have probably been rated and ranked a lot like Fred, but it was just kind of everything opened up. Everybody's catching up, quick turnaround. Oh, here's this guy that's 6'4", 220. We don't know anything about. Committed to South Carolina. He's a local kid. Oh, he may grow into a linebacker. Rate him a 3-star. Fred Johnson also came to camp. I think he had one offer from Virginia Tech at the time. He's from the 757, and he was another Clayton White camp eval. And then he blew up. Everybody offered him. He was in the what used to be the Army All-American Bowl, was a legit top 200 prospect, 4-star guy. I think 24/7 Sports had him higher than everybody. And look, you had veteran linebackers last year. You're not going to take Demetrius Knight off the field. You're already kind of platooning him with Bam Martin Scott. And then Debo never came off the field, hardly at all. And you had Kamara there for a while. But when Fred Johnson played, Fred Johnson looked good. You just notice how instinctive he is and all that. So I'm going with Fred J.R. Johnson as my defensive breakout player. All right, so that's coffee for today. Obviously, Zion Giles commits right around 10:30 this morning. Another 4-star offensive tackle. He's from Carvers Bay, in-state guy. South Carolina feels good. It's not a guarantee, but they feel pretty good about their chances. Complete coverage on thebigspur.com, where you can join for $1. Or actually, no, there's a new special, some kind of special all the time. And if you pay full price, you get Paramount Plus for free. So you can stream all the tournament games, I believe, on Paramount Plus. So check that out, man. On thebigspur.com. Hale McGranahan and the pride of Hampton County, Alex Jones, are en route probably as I'm recording this to Carvers Bay High School. If the Gamecocks do get him, it's a nice win. And I'll leave it at that. So there's more than just softball, baseball, women's basketball today. There is some recruiting to talk about as well as you look at your brackets and sob or cheer, as in the case of my wife. This has been Coffee with JC Shurburtt. Everybody, have a wonderful weekend. Hopefully, we're talking about good stuff next time we meet. JC out. Holla at you soon.